Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Zelda Speedruns. Today, we are here with the Echoes of Wisdom Community Race Any Percent Restricted. Today on commentary, we have Myth and Cloud, so I'm going to hand it off to them. Good luck.
Hey,
Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're super excited to be on commentary presenting to you the very first Echoes of Wisdom Community Any Percent Restricted race for you. It should be an exciting time. We've got a whole bunch of top runners all joined in one place to show off this super cool category. I think, yeah.
This is absolutely stacked. Like, who have we got? Like on the, I mean, we're just gonna have a quick look at like leaderboard positions.
Yeah, we've got the world record holder, TGH. We've got Glubbers and Joash also in the top three. Glan as well, not super far behind. Maze as well, not super far behind. This is a stacked group, so this should be an exciting race for you all today. And all these runners have been running this category for a few months now, honing their skills at the game, and we're excited for you to all check out what we've got. But without further ado, I think we can go ahead and get started then.
Yeah, let's get this show on the road.
And we are off. All right, so loading into the game here, as has become somewhat typical for Zelda games lately, we've got quite a long intro sequence to start off the game here. So we're going to see our runners loading in, playing as Link for the first couple minutes of the game. During a bit of an auto-scroller section where we've just got to walk up to the top, and we're going to be fighting Ganon. This might this game might actually have the world record for the fastest Ganon fight of any Zelda.
Oh yeah, I've definitely seen some people asking, it's like, oh, there's this category called Defeat Ganon. Is it just beating Ganon at the beginning of the game? Is that only a 4-minute category? That category is actually like a half of a glitchless run because you fight Ganon properly halfway through the game. But yeah, we're going to be having some gameplay here of typical Link form, which after this point we're not going to see again. There is a super cool glitch that you can do that you can load a save from this point of the game so that you can play as this Link in the rest of the game. It's not too much you can do with it, but if anyone saw GDQ with you, yeah, you saw it in person. Globber's got to show off that form.
So to see a jump and a quick spin there from everybody to quickly take out these dark nuts. We will be seeing a quick spin later in the game as well. As this is our only time playing as Link, we do still get to make use of a little bit of swordplay later on, and we'll get to that. But the swordplay mechanics in this game are actually pretty neat, and there's some cool stuff you can do with that, which you don't normally get to see in the any percent unrestricted category. This is something in terms of any percent unique to the restricted category, and maybe that's something we can spend a little bit of time talking about in just a sec here. We'll go over the differences between what makes restricted unique and separate as a category from unrestricted. But before that, here we've got our Defeat Ganon Part 1 boss fight here. You'll just see a few bomb throws. These bombs actually do incredible damage, and you can shoot them with a bow to kind of get them to blow up early and take out Ganon in just a couple cycles here.
Yeah, during week 1 of the speedrun, everyone was like doing like sword slashes and like quick spins and stuff. And then someone decided, like, let's test what the damage values are on the other stuff. And we realized very quickly that, hey, bombs do a lot of damage. And that quick kill got discovered, and everyone's been doing that pretty recently. I don't think anyone went for... earlier today, Owen found a way of skipping the very last cycle and speeding up a little bit, but it turned out to be quite unreliable and quite tricky. And I don't think anyone's had enough time to really practice that and implement that into runs yet. But
yeah, we were wondering before if anyone was going to go for that, and I guess not, but that's okay. So here we're just gonna kick off a bit of an escape sequence where we now get to play as Zelda, and we're gonna be playing as her for the rest of the game, as was previously mentioned.
So, any percent, what is any percent? Why is there a restricted and unrestricted? Well, basically what makes any percent instead of like glitchless is that we have wrong warps. We can activate a warp and control it to warp us to a place that isn't intended, and it lets us to get to dungeons, and especially the final dungeon, way earlier than intended. There are kind of two ways that we know how to do it. The very first way was called a random wrong warp, where we don't really have any control whatsoever about the destination. We just warp to somewhere in the overworld or somewhere in a dungeon, depending on the conditions of when we trigger it. That's not great for a variety of reasons. One of them being it's just unreliable. Like, we can just crash for no reason.
With those random ROM warps, there's a few number of outcomes you can get. You can get a crash, like Myth mentioned. It can send you to a number of different locations, some of which are much better than others, much faster than others in terms of getting to the final dungeon from there. And then sometimes you can just not warp at all. And the setup that you have to use in unrestricted, just as fast as possible, it takes like 1.5, 2 minutes. You have to build this very complicated structure to reach the ceiling of the world, because to perform a wrong warp glitch, it requires you have a zone where Link can void out. And you can do that by reaching the ceiling of the world, like the playable area. However, it's a 2-frame perfect input, so you get a 30th of a second to react, to get your input in, and if you mess it up, you have to build that whole structure again. You just get one try at it. So it can be a very frustrating glitch, not only in terms of difficulty, but in RNG, as Myth also mentioned. And so because of that, the community decided to make a separate any percent restricted category that allows you to complete the first dungeon in its entirety and allows you to perform a warp that is 100% consistent and much more easily retryable, with no RNG involved. And so that's what we're going to be seeing from our runners here today. I guess to go over more a little bit kind of the general framework of the run, we've got a bit of a lengthy intro section here. We're going to just be mashing through some dialogue, getting some story. It wouldn't be a Zelda game without the classic giant lore dump at the beginning. And then after that, we're going to be making our way to the first dungeon, Southern Ruins, as was previously mentioned. Afterwards, we're going to perform another little bit of an escape. That's pretty neat. And then we'll be making our way straight to set up the wrong warp to the final boss. So if you're new to the speedruns of this game and you're wondering why any percent is only like around 40 minutes, that's pretty much why. As we mentioned, we're just going to be able to wrong warp right to the final area of the game and take on the final boss with a very limited inventory. It's kind of neat how that kind of carries over from the last two mainline Zelda games, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, that actually have that as a built-in design of the game. This game was not designed for you to be heading straight to the final boss, and so things are going to be pretty tough in terms of what equipment we can gather along the way, what tools or echoes, like the main mechanic of the game, that we can be able to use in the final dungeon and as well as in the final boss.
You know, it's a downtime section when all of the runners are in the race time chat just talking to each other. Don't typically see this in races, but yeah, here's the downtime section with cutscenes.
Mm-hmm. And now would be a good time for some donations, right?
Hello chat, how are you doing? Who's playing Echoes right now? Or who's planning on like doing Echoes or like running any of the like categories? So I guess we can talk a little bit about what we're wanting to do with these races, because this is not just going to be a one-off. We're planning on doing weeklies, where like kind of every 2 weeks it's going to be this any percent restricted category, since it's the most accessible and like the best category as an introductory category for everyone. And then like the in-between races is going to be a variety of different categories, like all dungeons and like defeat Ganon and other stuff, to give it a little bit more variety to see the other stuff that you can do in the game.
Right. It's always great with the Zelda any percent. You know, you've got your any percent where you just rush to the end of the game as fast as possible. But personally, I'm also a fan of longer categories where we get to see more of the game and also a wider variety of glitches, tricks, strats, etc. Some very neat stuff. The dungeons in this game saw kind of a bit of a return to classic Zelda form in terms of like what you can expect to see within a dungeon, how the puzzles work, the layouts, etc. They're very cool. And if you haven't seen an all dungeon speedrun, I definitely recommend checking that out as well. But yeah, hopefully we get to have some of those races in the future as well.
Yeah, the thing that I really love about this game is just the variety of tools that you're given means that like it's not immediately obvious what the best route is or anything like that. So you can't there's so much development that can go on, and you just need to think a little bit outside the box and try a new idea out, and you might discover something that's gonna work really well. Like we saw that in all dungeons where we kind of thought, hey, it's a Zelda game, obviously you're going to be using the sword, right? It's like, well, what about if we try using other things to deal damage to bosses? So, like, what if we try doing bombs only? Or what's the best route at the moment is we go and get Lizalfos level 2 because it has an extremely high DPS.
Just like they always say, the lizard is mightier than the sword, or whatever. But yeah, it's been cool seeing all the different route ideas kind of competing for like faster and more efficient, etc. I
Sorry.
think this game, both casually
Sorry,
and
everyone. Everyone just sorry for interrupting you. It was just everyone
no
spinning
worries.
around in the jail.
It's always fun to see. It looks like we actually ended up getting some donations, Tobias. That's very generous. But I was just gonna say, I think both in terms of casual gameplay and from a speedrun perspective, I think Echoes of Wisdom strikes a really good balance between what people liked from traditional Zelda games where you have a more linear format, and there's a lot more progression-based gameplay there, and also the open world Zeldas, where you have just a lot of creative freedom to solve puzzles in different ways, and maybe in ways that the developers never even intended, but are still extremely viable strategies for completing things. And we see a lot of that both in this category and in longer categories like all dungeons. Glitchless especially is also a very neat and comfy watch for a speedrun.
Yeah, glitchless is cool in that because the game is mostly linear, there isn't going to be that much changing of how the glitchless run develops, but like it's very much more of you can narrow down on each room and just work on pure optimization, and that's like exploring a different thing, and it gives some nice variety. Whereas like all dungeons, like we have a complete blank slate there. We can approach the dungeons in any order that we can think of to try and piece together what's the best way of doing it.
It's really a speedrun rodder's dream, a category like all dungeons. So here we're finally out of the intro section, 11 minutes into the run, and we're going to be going through this prison escape sequence where we have to avoid these guards and make it to the other side of this long hallway. So we're going to be seeing some interesting movement here from these runners. And you'll see these guys doing what we call a spawn jump, where you're able to jump and pull out an echo at the same time. Because normally when you set one down, there's a bit of a movement delay for Zelda. She kind of pauses for a moment. But with a spawn jump, you can just seamlessly and fluidly move and jump onto those tables as we make our way through the prison escape here.
It looks like everyone's going for the fastest strat here in the second section. That it's a little bit of a tight placement on the table at the end there. It's not something that's too tricky once you practiced it enough times.
And it looks like everybody got it too. Incredible job from our runners.
It's super brutal when you don't get it. You lose an entire minute. So like I wouldn't blame anyone who goes for the strat that loses like half a second and is much easier to pull off.
Yeah, especially in a no reset race setting like this. But everybody went for the optimal strat and everybody hit it. So shout outs to all of them.
Yeah, I guess go with what you're comfortable with.
And honestly, that might be setting the tone for what you can expect to see here from all of our racers. Uh, I think I think we can probably expect to see. I haven't talked to any of the runners beforehand, but I think we can probably expect to see everybody going for the hardest and fastest things uh, that they can in this run to try to get up leg up on the competition. Because as stacked as our competition is, I think our racers know that as well. That they're up against the best of the best. So I think we can expect to see some exciting gameplay coming up here.
Yeah, something I noticed is Glan has had world record in this category before, but they haven't run um, the most recent route, so they have quite a slow time on the leaderboard. So they they have an extremely high chance of PBing in this race if they keep pace with everyone else who's got faster times on the new route.
Yeah, great point. It'll be interesting to watch Glenn and see what he's able to accomplish here. He's been working on a lot of all dungeons recently, gradually lowering his time in that category, which has been very cool to see. But we'll definitely be keeping an eye on Glenn. And then of course we have Glubbers as well, who showcased this very same category at AGDQ a few weeks ago. An incredible run by him, and so that'll be definitely another runner to watch. And then of course the world record holder TGH in pretty much every category for this game. An incredible speedrunner. We can expect to see some awesome gameplay from him as well. And then Joash as well also has had a world record in a couple categories in this game. Very talented runner in his own right.
Yeah, that room that they just did, there's a couple of jumps that are really, like, easy, but it's hard to say that when I've fallen down so many times, and if you fall down, it's really brutal, because you just have to run back and climb the ladder again, and it just loses way too much time for what it's worth. And we saw a couple of them put down a table first, and to make the jumps a little bit easier. And Joash did miss the last jump and had to go and do a lap around and do it again, but
Uh-huh. So what we just saw is kind of our first example of the creative use of the echoes that we pick up in this run. The bed is for sleeping, of course, but it's also can be used for platforming and for healing and even for damage. We saw them drop the bed from a height to break those crates, which is the fastest way to do so. So we'll be seeing a lot more of that bed coming into play later in the run as well.
everyone loved the bed at GDQ.
Yeah, you can expect to see some bed action, so stick around for that.
Chat, do you like beds?
Okay, so we're coming into the beach entrance here, which is going to be where the game really starts to open up. And I think here we can start to see, looks like TGH has got a little bit of a lead over the other runners that we have on screen right now. But I think we can start from here, probably start to see a little bit more opening up in terms of some people making mistakes, some people getting these small optimizations to gain a little bit of time, and maybe a little bit of separation between our runners from this point on. As we are into the semi-open world, we're going to make our way to the first dungeon.
So I'm pretty certain we're going to see everyone doing almost exactly the same thing throughout this section. I suspect that the only difference that's possibly going to occur is there's in order to do the wrong warp, we need to get a glitch called map storage, and the traditional way of doing that is by reading a sign, but some people are going to avoid capturing the sign and doing the glitch using the sign, and instead activate sword form to do it, which can save more time, but is trickier to pull off.
Uh-huh, that's a great point. That's what we saw Glubbers go for at GDQ actually, which was very interesting. So we'll see who goes for the sign. And we're going to be seeing our runners grab a chest here with 50 rupees, which will come into play later, and we'll explain that when we get to it. But these 50 rupees are crucial for the current route, and they actually save a ton of time, or contribute to a ton of time save. And there we go, TGH, Joash, and Glubbers all skipping the sign, so it looks like they're all going to be going for the sword fighter mode.
Yeah, theoretically we can skip that money, but it does rely on getting RNG rupee drops, which I don't think anyone's prepared to go for yet.
Mhm.
On average, I think it's going to lose time to just getting that chest.
And it looks like Glan skipped the sign as well, so we'll be getting to see that sword fighter void out from everybody here, and some more bed platforming to make our way over the top to hit this cutscene trigger required. It's just a progression flag here, and then we're going to be making our way to the stilled world, which will give us access to the first dungeon that we need to complete, and the only dungeon that we are going to be completing in this run. Again, any percent restricted does mean you have to complete the entirety of the first dungeon to access the index wrong warp, which is the consistent non-RNG wrong warp, compared to unrestricted, where you still have to enter the dungeon, but you can leave after, I believe it's the second room, and then head straight out, back out to the overworld to perform the random wrong warp setup. And we're going to be seeing our runners grab a couple warp points along the way here. There's one that's forced, and then the others are just crucial for the speedrun. That'll come into play during the wrong warp later on.
Yeah, in order to perform the wrong warp, we need to... You can only wrong warp to areas that you're in simple terms. So, like, we need to be able to get into a dungeon to wrong warp to a dungeon, because we're going to wrong warp to the final dungeon. And the fastest dungeon to get back to is the first dungeon, because it's the only dungeon we've been to. So that's why we get that warp.
Mm-hmm. And we see TGH and our runners are jumping into the still world now. The still world is kind of like an alternate dimension where everything's all twisted and evil. And that's where all the dungeons in the game are, including the final dungeon. And so just to set up a little bit of explanation, so you've got a little bit of background for when we explain the wrong warps later on, the game stores the overworld that we went through and the still world maps on two separate layers. But they are still kind of like parallel worlds, even in the game's code, in the sense that each point on the map in the overworld has a corresponding point on the still world, and they don't exactly line up as you think. But we'll get more into that later. We're gonna see our runners going for a skip that everyone affectionately calls wife jump, as this little frozen NPC actually has collisions. You can see them use beds to jump on her head and just platform across. That saves about, what, 20-30 seconds perhaps over running through the cave.
I don't even remember what that cave looks like.
I think it's got a bunch of enemies you have to fight, so it's probably more than that because it allows us to skip combat echoes before this point.
Yeah, we really don't have that many echoes so far. We just have a bed and, well, the table, obviously, at the beginning, and then the urchin, because urchin... Actually, we only use urchin once, and it's going to be to get the Ignachad.
Yeah, we'll see that come into play. So now, as we enter the first dungeon, Southern Ruins, we're going to be seeing our runners unlock a new ability, which is Bind. Bind is kind of like Ultra Hand from Tears of the Kingdom, if you're familiar with that game. We can use it to latch onto objects and drag them around. And later on in this dungeon, we'll also be unlocking Reverse Bind, where we can, instead of dragging objects around, we can have Zelda latch on and she'll follow that object's movement path, which also will come into play during the same dungeon. So there's our first use of beds as a combat tool to get the Strantula, another very powerful echo that we can get early game for platforming, and we'll see other uses for that later as well. And speaking of echoes, there's my favorite echo in the game, the Ignazal. This little guy, not only is he super cute and super fun to play with, but he actually has, I believe, the 3rd or 4th highest DPS in the game. And so the fact that you can just get him in the first dungeon in like 2 seconds is very overpowered.
Yeah, it's kind of really confusing because of, like, the damage that the Ignazol does from a player-spawned echo doesn't correlate to, like, how much damage it does as, like, an enemy, and that really confused the reverse engineering like researchers. So like originally the damage that was written down in documentation was half of what we then measured it to be. And then once we realized Ignachad's true power, then he became optimal in the run.
And we can see not only is he cute and powerful, he's also very smart. We can use him to solve puzzles like that torch room we just saw. And he'll be kind of one of our MVPs of the run for sure in terms of echoes that we grab. We're gonna see him make short work of the mini boss of this dungeon, which is Dark Link or Echo Link. I'm not sure what he's actually called. But you can see Glubbers and TGH and Joash already heading into the fight, Glan not far behind. So the strat here is very simple. You just kind of run around to the back of Link so where he can't see you, drop the Ignazal. Ignazal does 2 hits. You get that initial hit damage and then that burn damage over time, which in just 2 hits will end each phase.
Yeah,
As we saw, very clean execution there from TGH.
For damage values, if we were to go and get a Dark Nut, the Dark Nut swing does 6 damage. When the Ignazol does his jump attack, he does 8 damage, so he does more damage than the Dark Nut. And he will apply fire to Link, and the fire burns for, I think it's 5 additional damage over time. So the damage does rack up pretty fast from Ignazol.
That's actually wild. It's like over double of the Dark Nut's damage. I can see why we quickly started skipping the Dark Nut in this round. But yeah, here we're going to see our runners pick up Sword Fighter mode, which is how we get to use this for a lot of combat and puzzles. And this is also a crucial key since everybody skipped a sign for our wrong warp that we'll be seeing after the completion of the dungeon. So we're going to be seeing a lot of Sword Fighter mode in various places for the rest of the run. It's quite a useful tool. Not only does it allow you quick and easy combat, but it also gives you a bit of a higher jump that you can use as well for movement and platforming and such.
Yeah, we're gonna have one more combat room here with the Deku Barbers. There's a little bit of tech that we can do when we pull the Deku Barbers. If you jump right as you're pulling the head of it, it kind of cancels Zelda's knockback animation, and you have full control, and you can move optimally to the next position for when the fight ends, or move to the next Deku Barber just to save a little bit of time. The windows are pretty tight.
Yeah, very nice optimization though. Saves about 1.5 seconds each time you can get it. And we're actually already almost at the end of the dungeon. There's a bit of a branched path. We'll have to backtrack a bit. We can see TGH now that he grabbed the key going to the other room here. And we're coming up on one of the most interesting platforming sections of the run.
Yeah, this is so hard. I've spent so much time just redoing this room over and over again because you just need some time muscle memory to be able to do the moving platform room that TGH is about to get to. So there's been a lot of different approaches, but I think everyone's all doing the same thing now, which is we're going to be jumping up on the right-hand side with these tarantulas and then doing mid-air jumps. TGH's going for a little bit of a safer strat there, but
yeah, looks like it. But barely loses any time.
Yeah.
And yeah, very clean execution from TGH there. Unfortunately, Joash is gonna fall. He's gonna head back into the other room just to reset the cycle. Which is definitely the right play to make if you fall at all.
Yeah, Glubbers managed to pull off perfectly the super optimal version. Glan did the same as TGH, going for a slightly easier version of it.
And it looks like Glan's been able to pull ahead of Joash a little bit. And Glubbers managed to catch up a little bit with that execution there. Yeah, he's quite good at that room. I've seen him practice it and go for it and hit it quite a lot in runs. But we are now already approaching the end of the first dungeon. TGH is in the boss fight. There's another nice use of the bed there to get on the boss's head. And we're just going to be doing a number of slashes, and these quick spins are coming back into play like we talked about during the Ganon fight earlier. The quick spin does double damage, but it has a slightly longer cooldown before you can get in another attack. So we always like to get in a quick spin for the very last hit that we need. So if the boss requires 14 hits, we'll do 12 hits and then a quick spin just to get a slightly faster final kill there. And speaking of final kill, TGH has officially dismantled the boss with precision and speed. And so we are going to see our first runner Speaking of which, I'm
The
also interested to see if anybody skips the hard container.
Oh, that is true. Yeah, I realize now that skipping the heart container is probably viable with how fast the category is now, but it does make the final boss extremely scary. Yeah, everyone had super clean fights. The middle cycle of this boss can be a little bit tricky, but everyone nailed it perfectly. And the final phase, there's some RNG involved, but no one got the bad RNG.
Yeah, so we'll see here just a little bit of cutscene, and this will kind of be our last cutscenes of the run, more or less. Uh, After we exit the final dungeon here, after that, we're basically in go mode. Once we leave here, we've got one more escape to pull off, and then we can head straight to the final boss. And we did it. We did get a little bit of separation, like I predicted from our runners, but not more than 20-30 seconds between them. So this is going to be very tight going into the end game here as we come up. We're just over 10-15 minutes left in the run. And here we'll get to see if anyone skips the hard container. If you watched Glubber's run at AGDQ a few weeks ago, he did end up skipping the hard container for a donation challenge, and he pulled it off flawlessly. So maybe he's got the confidence to go for it again if he can do it in front of thousands of people. Maybe he can do it here in our community race. But yeah, like Myth mentioned, the heart container skips a few seconds of text. Looks like TGH is going to grab it. But it gives you basically an extra hit in the final boss. With 3 hearts, basically anything is a 1-hit KO. But with 4 hits, you can take an additional hit if you're at full health. Glubber's grabbing the heart container as well. I don't blame them, by the way. I don't blame anybody for grabbing the heart container.
No, this final boss is no joke. It is seriously scary. It can just kill you.
It's a very intimidating
easily.
end to the run. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be absolutely shocked if everyone gets a perfect null at the end of the run. It's so temperamental.
So now, as we've got a bit of a cool trick coming up here that we call Blueberry Skip. We're gonna have to play a little bit of a game of the floor is lava. We're gonna try to stay on beds and then get to a certain point and then void out. The reason why we do this is because we have this minister here that we have to escort to Blueberry's house, which takes a couple minutes, and then once we get there, we've got 2 or 3 more minutes of dialogue and cutscenes that we'll have to go through. But we can skip this by performing this little floor is lava trick. We can see TJH placing down like a bed bridge here. We're going to pull these crates precisely in a way where Zelda can get stuck. The game will fail save void her out back to where she was, as we saw from TGH there, flawless. And then we can navigate over these trees to avoid the trigger. Because if you go too close to the minister, we wanted to kind of lure her away a bit. If you go too close there, then she'll kind of pull you back into the cutscene, and you'll have to either reload and perform the trick again, or take the massive time loss of watching those agonizingly slow cutscenes. Anytime we get a cutscene skip in a speedrun, we love that. It's always great to see. A little bit of a hang up from Josh there, but otherwise everybody pulled off a very clean blueberry skip, and we're all now making our way up northwest. So something here that we're going to see, and this is where the 50 rupees came into play earlier. Right now, we're in basically what the game recognizes as a mini-game state during that escort mission. It's just kind of a flag they set so they can pull you back into that dialogue sequence. So what we're going to have to do, and why we grab those rupees, is we're going to talk to the Acorn Man and play the Acorn minigame, and then we're going to immediately leave the area to cancel a minigame, and that will trick the game basically into canceling the minigame state for us. Well, it's not really tricking the game. I mean, that's what it does. It cancels the minigame state. And the reason we need to do that is because while in that state, we can't warp. And if we can't warp, we can't wrong warp. So that's what we're going to be seeing here.
I love it when devs make like little shortcuts for themselves like that. And it's like, oh, we'll just have like the same state for just you're not allowed to teleport. And we can just exploit that. It's like, oh, if you're going to make it the same state, then we'll activate something that cancels that.
Yeah, it's a very cool technique that we can pull off in this game. So now we're going to be heading up to the Eternal Forest. This is our void out zone. We mentioned this is crucial earlier.
PGH is going for the sign setup. They picked up a sign at a different point.
Looks like it. But yeah, third, fourth try, not bad. So basically to explain what's going on right here, we're using the sign or the sword fighter form as kind of like an interaction that can basically delay the act of voiding out. So you kind of want to activate this as you're moving into the void out trigger, either a sign, reading the sign or sword fighter form, and then canceling that. And you have 2 frames in there to pull up the map. And once you pull up the map, you can warp while you're still in the menu. So the game's trying to void you out, but you can still move during this state. And what we're going to do is warp back to the entrance to the first dungeon, or the entrance to this first still world, and we're going to enter the still world. And as we mentioned before, what's going to happen is once you get there, you can kind of release that menu that you have pulled up, and you can pull up a copy of the map. Basically, what you can do is select 2 warp points at the same time. And by swapping which map layer you're on at the last second after you try to warp somewhere, the game, instead of warping you to that point that you selected on the overworld, it'll send you to the matching index or the matching warp point in the still world. And it just so happens that warp point that was picked up earlier, its matching index is the entrance to the final dungeon. So that's how we're able to get all the way from the end of the first dungeon to the beginning of the last dungeon, just like that.
Yeah, it's an absolute miracle that it does actually match up, because not all of the warps have like corresponding valid ID pairs. And also, this final dungeon doesn't even have any like warp points that should be usable. These are literally just leftover things by the devs. It's extremely fortunate.
For sure. And it's fortunate that the warp point that it corresponds to in the overworld is very accessible. It's like barely out of the way at all, instead of like, out in the top of the snowy Hebra Mountains or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Which would be an absolute pain.
Yeah, this room here is pretty damn tricky. There are these blobs that when they make contact with Zelda, they'll spawn their enemies, and we need to clear them sequentially in order to clear the room and be able to advance. Luckily for us, if we bait them around for a little bit, they'll pause, and in that pause period, we can kill the blob without it spawning the enemy. So we use sword fighter form during that. The last one is a Lionel, which Glubbers is having to deal with right now.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. He's gonna have to rely on Link to kind of take care of it for him, because he wants to save his sword fighter juice or whatever you call it for later in the run. Oh, very unfortunate, taking a single hit there. He's gonna have to redo the room, but he gets another chance at the Lionel skip. But yeah, to answer the question in chat, the wrong warp works on the pre-release and also the release version of the game 1.0.1. But it was patched in 1.0.2, which is the current release. And there are some other changes, but all our runners are playing on 1.0 because it is just a bit faster.
Yeah, Lubbery Skip has some quirks with it if you're playing on 1.0.1, so you have to do Lubbery Skip a little bit differently. Specifically, once you get the map storage and you want to go and do the wrong warp, there's different movement that you have to do, which slows things down a little bit. But currently, the only version of the game that you can get 1.0 for legitimately is the physical copy of the game. And the game just loads and runs faster on a digital copy, so you can have a digital 1.0.1 and run the game, and you'll get the advantage of having like every room load a little bit faster, but then you'll have the disadvantage of Lubbery being slower. So it somewhat evens everything out, so that's a viable version for you to run on if you want to, if that's the only version you have access to.
And things are moving so fast here. We didn't even get a chance to talk about it, barely glanced over it, but all of our runners just performed what we call soft lock skip. So part of a side effect of wrong warping into the final boss area is that we don't have the correct progression flags set, so things in the dungeon are a bit messed up, which is both helpful and can get in our way. So that room with the orb there that we saw all the runners breaking, if you try to break that orb normally to open the door, if we, since we wrong warped in, it's just gonna soft lock the game because we get stuck in like an eternal cutscene where we're waiting for Link, but he never shows up. So what you can do there is you can hit the orb and pause on the same exact frame, and then save and then reload the area, and that'll skip the soft lock. And all our runners got it first try. If you mess it up, you have to close out the game and reopen it. It's over a minute of time lost, but everybody seems to get it first try, which is great. And now we are in the final boss already, just like that. And this boss is a doozy for sure. There's phase 1 isn't anything too terribly hard, but later on we're gonna have to perform a lot of manipulations to get the boss to do what we want for the fastest possible cycles on each of the phases within.
Yeah, to speed up the fight as much as we can, we just have to get Link to do as much damage to the boss as well. We will also put down Ignorant Souls to deal damage. Once we've pulled the arms off, there is a set amount of health that we need to deplete down. Once that hits 0, it advances to the next stage. We can activate Sword Form in this mode, but we do have a limited amount of energy, and we want to make sure that we're using it in the most optimal place possible. So everyone's going to be keeping at least a sliver of sword form for the second phase of the fight, which will be which TGH has got to right now. At the end of this water section, we just swim along with Null, and once they reach a certain point, their health just gets set to 1, and we just need to do a single hit, and it will end the fight. And the fastest way of doing that is to just activate sword form and slash it once.
Especially with the echoes we have, we didn't really want to grab any water echoes, go out of our way for that. But basically how the Null fight works in the other two phases, phase 1 and 3, is Null has these arms that you can pull off for Link to hit, and then after all the arms have been pulled off, you've got this little slash section where you just gotta damage him down. And we also like to use Sword Fighter mode in a place where it is the final hit, because otherwise we get that deactivation small half-second cutscene of Sword Fighter form, and if we get it on the final hit, it skips that cutscene here. But TGH has built up quite a lead. He's already into phase 3, which is the hardest part of the run by far.
They are ahead of their own world record right now.
Oh wow, I didn't even notice his splits. But we have a world record pacer in our community race going on right now, so pay attention to that for sure. This is incredibly exciting.
Yeah, it's
Joash and
down
Glant
to
not far
level 3.
behind. Yeah, and you can't. There is a little bit of RNG in this fight, but it really just comes down to manipulating the boss cycle as efficiently and effectively as possible. But Link is a toddler, and he tends to do the wrong thing a lot of the time, so we're gonna have to pull him around and just kind of pray that he does what we want him to, doesn't get caught up fighting other enemies when he should be cutting the arms and such.
Yeah, this is one of the trickiest parts, and Link was a little bit slow there, but TGH did get the 3 arms killed in the Darkness phase as fast as possible, and that saves a huge amount of time.
So you see how Null has these 3 of the arms have those yellow orb creatures in them. Each one of those, it'll spawn a boss wave during the in-between sections, so we want to prioritize cutting those off so we can avoid having to deal with those bosses. Those boss echoes, we can't fight them, we can't do damage to them, they just do their attack and we have to dodge or defend. It's basically a complete time waster, so skipping those is incredibly optimal as much as we possibly can. And TGH is going to be heading into what I consider the hardest part of the run, which is the Lizalfos wave here. You can place down those urchins, or what we might see the Strangel as well, as kind of taunts to draw enemy aggro, while you can kind of bait the arms out of the wall and wait for Link to attack. There's also a Floor Master that will follow you around and try to grab you, and that's an instant 45-second time loss if it catches you, because you have to sit there and kind of break it till Zelda pops back out, and there's nothing you can do in the meantime.
That was a great Lizalfos phase. They managed to get those arms pulled seriously quickly without getting any of them killed.
Yeah, oh, unfortunately he missed the second arm there, so probably he's going to lose some time from that, but he's still on an incredible pace.
They all they need to do is pull 2 arms in this phase to prevent an extra boss wave. Can they get that pulled in time? They missed their grab. Yeah, no, that. Oh no!
It cut the arm, but it was too late. He still got the boss spawn. That's a scam. That's a scam for sure.
Oh, this is brutal when this happens.
But that's still a free ending of the fight for TGH, and now it's just the final damage down section before the end of the run. This is coming down to the wire. Like we mentioned, he was on world record pace going into the fight, so we'll see if he can clutch it out. It's gonna be really close. I don't think he quite got it, but it's gonna be super close. And time is going to come up here for TGH as the Triforce pops out in 3, 2, 1. And time. Wow,
Yeah,
just
GG's,
4
man.
seconds off world record, his own world record. That's incredibly well played by TGH. And with that, TGH is the winner of our first Echoes of Wisdom community race here. So huge congrats to him. Incredible showing all around. And let's kind of check in on how our other runners are doing. Looks like Glan is not far behind either. He's heading into the final phase.
Joash is in the final phase right now. The triple like score chill is pretty deadly, and they just made a little hole for themselves, and then they get the worst.
Oh no, he got
boss
Goma.
cycle.
That's unfortunate.
Luckily it's not too bad when we have Ignazol. In the any percent unrestricted category, you don't get Ignazol, so you just have to deal with the webs on the ground, and it's just awful. And GG's to Glan. Finishing second place, 43 minutes. That's a huge PB for them. That's like a 6-minute PB.
Joas finishing up as well, just into the final damage down section here. And again, who else but our trusty Ignazol to finish off the run, getting in those hits on Null. And Joash is going to finish with a sub 45 time. Another incredible showing as well from him. But yeah, looks like Glan was just a few seconds over PB as well.
Yo, TGH, welcome in. GG's.
Belbra's finishing up. Oh, just barely clutched out the sub 45. Even dying to the Lionel, that's an impressive time, especially considering that he played very cleanly throughout the rest of the run.
This was a seriously impressive race from everyone. Everyone was so close throughout all of it, and it's just like the most minute of mistakes were made. Like everyone is finishing in under 45 minutes. That is just seriously impressive from everyone on
Very
stream
tight,
today.
very little separation all the way through. Very few major mistakes from anybody across the board here. So congrats to all of them.
I died.
Welcome back to life.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome in, GG's.
I just realized my mic is muted the whole time. Hi. I had to catch my breath anyway, so it's fine.
How are you
42 is
feeling? Oh my
crazy.
god. Yeah,
Oh,
that was
I was
wild.
saying the fact that we all got sub 45 in that race is actually like incredible. Because this category is not easy. Like the end game is very difficult, so I'm just glad I didn't die to null. Personally. Like that's what I was worried about.
I was a little worried about dying to null when I went in with 2 hearts, but it worked out.
Yeah, sub 45, even with the Lionel death, is incredibly well done.
Oh, that's really good, yeah.
That Lionel was mean.
That's why we skip him. But yeah, your GG's all you guys. Incredible showing.
Yeah, GG's y'all, seriously.
Everyone did
GG's.
really well. Yeah, GG's everyone.
Everyone sub
Maze
45, everyone like a minute and a half or less behind PB, so
I was
very
8 seconds.
You were what? 8 seconds?
Seconds behind PB, yeah.
Dang.
Oh yeah, sorry, I was mistaken. You have done more runs of this category. I was only looking at the leaderboard.
Yeah, I
and thought, sorry,
haven't. I haven't submitted a run since like November because I'm lazy.
that's relatable. But yeah,
Yeah.
how are our racers, some of them joining in on the call here? How are you guys feeling? What do you feel like were your strengths and weaknesses during this run?
I think the
Well-
only major mistake I made was fighting Link, which I often do. I'm a little too impatient there. So
Yeah, I mean, I think my Southern was really solid. I lost 15-ish seconds on Link, but I was only 9 seconds off my gold, so I was pretty impressed with my Southern, other than
Hmm.
Link. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
your moving platform room is really impressive. Those jumps are scary, where you jump off the vine and like re-grab midair. That's crazy to me.
Oh, you
it's
went for
super
that?
fun. Yeah, Stratty McStrat
Good.
face. Yeah.
I would never do that in a race. Big props.
Oh, I did that on GDQ.
I saw. I was like, oh, I mean, that's just like that's swag on the stage, but in a race,
I got super
that's
comfy
mad.
with it, going for it for yeah, it was swag on the stage, but because I was doing that, I got super comfy with it.
Nice.
Speaking of that,
But
we were discussing if anybody was gonna go for the heart container skip at the end of Southern. If
no,
anybody was
it's
gonna
not
be
worth it.
ballsy to pull that off.
Nobody was paying $100 this time.
Very
If
fair,
I
very fair
if I
point.
had skipped the heart container, I might have PB'd.
It was so
I
hard
hate
to
I hate to
see.
say it, but I might have PB'd if I had skipped it.
Yeah, it's so hard
I
to see everyone's fight at the end. It's such like a dense part, and like TJ, you were on world record pace, so we were so engrossed on that.
Oh,
Um,
did you like the glitched null phase 3 that I got?
Oh my god, we
Like, oh, that
yeah,
was I thought I was gonna
we were
die
got
to that,
so
and I
furious.
would have been
silly when
so
that happened.
mad.
Oh, you had the him stay in the ring?
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh no. Was it during a score chill phase too?
The
it was
last,
it was
It was
during like
Ganon.
it was Ganon and
it was Ganon 6, 6 pattern.
yeah,
Oh
Oh, that's
no.
awful.
it was
Yeah,
like
we
Ganon followed by Talus followed by Ganon that
Yeah,
phase.
you
Oh,
got
that one.
hit, and
I got hit once,
That
yeah.
one's not too
oh,
bad.
See, that's why you would get the heart container though, right? You would have died
True,
if you got hit.
true. I think I ended with 2 hearts. The thing I got hit by did 2 hearts of damage, whatever it was, I think.
It's probably null then.
Yeah,
Null was
null's the
2.
only thing that would hit you for 2 there.
yeah,
The
that
bosses
was
were
quite
3.
stressful and I wasn't even playing. But it looks like we got a finish from Maze here as well, 46:38. Again, a very impressive
Good
time
time.
for a no reset race setting.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
we're still waiting for Photon here to head us up. Shoutouts to him, by the way. He just got the 100% world record for this game yesterday. So
yeah,
he's
they
not as
don't even
comfortable with
run
any
this
percent
category.
restricted. But
And
yeah,
then,
shoutouts to him for joining the race as well.
yeah, they're doing a seriously good job here. They're in null phase 3 right now. They should be finishing up pretty soon with a really decent time. I think they said that they kept doing any percent, 100% strats in the first dungeon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The muscle memory swapping back and forth between categories is always something fun to interact with.
What is their PB in any percent? Does anyone know offhand? I'm trying to find it right now.
I do not know.
Not sure.
Uh,
I think he said he'd like a low 50 something, but that might be too high. I don't know.
That's what I think too.
So what you're saying is we might get to see a race PB after all.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got really trolled by the targeting system. Somebody had
oh,
to in this race, and it was me.
Thanks for taking one for the team.
It literally killed PB
I also had a targeting system moment.
because I could not target one of the arms in the dark nut phase. I just could not target it.
I
Yeah,
grabbed Link in phase 1, and I don't know how it targeted Link in phase 1.
between the jank of the targeting system sometimes and having to deal with Link's funny AI running around like a chicken, it's it makes a very stressful boss fight all the more stressful to have to deal with that on top of everything else.
Yeah, you all did toddler leash strats, right?
Yeah, I did.
I have a clip of me fighting Null, and Link is like on the direct opposite side of where I am, where I'm pulling the arm, and he like he'll try to take the shortest route. And granted,
Oh,
this is probably my fault lately, but he'll try to take the shortest route to like where the arm is, but he was directly on the other side, and he just could not decide which way to go. It legit looked like he was doing like the chicken dance, like trying to, trying to get around.
It's like a Vibruto, if you know Ocarina of Time. I love that. I've seen that before. Oh, GG Photon.
Oh yeah, we got photons. Finish
Oh,
with a
yeah, I
time of
know.
53:32. Dying at the end of phase 3. That's the worst place to
Ooh,
die. But
yeah.
fortunately, the game generally gives you an autosave at the start of phase 3. We mentioned earlier how wrong warping into the final dungeon kind of messes up some of the progression flags. Normally it disables saving and autosaving during the final boss, but because of those messed up flags, we do get an autosave after phase 2, which means if you die, you don't have to go all the way back to the beginning of the fight. You can just restart from phase 3 and give it another go right from there. But yeah, and that'll wrap up our race. Congratulations to everybody. Incredibly well done. Strong showing for our first community any percent race. And speaking of that, since we've got a lot of our top runners and community members in the call with us, how are you guys feeling about more of these in the future?
I'm
Looking
down.
forward to it.
Yeah, this was fun. We have some plans tentative for weekly races. Not all of them are going to be restreamed, I doubt, but
Mm-hmm.
we've got at least plans to try for the month of February doing a different category every week, so that'll be fun.
Oh yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to all dungeons. That's probably my favorite category.
Yeah, so you're gonna join, right?
Yeah,
Um,
it's next week.
I've got 1 week to learn all dungeons, is what you're saying.
Yes.
I don't have 1.0,
Or
unfortunately, but
or you can join the restricted All Dungeons race on the 15th.
oh,
That's like a super new category. We've got like a route we think's decent, but like basically only TGH has run it. So hopefully more people get into that category.
that would
Yeah,
be
myself
cool.
and Glenn have
Yeah, we had
have
some
run it.
uncertainty on the specifics of the rules, but
Yeah, we both use like two different rule sets, so we kind of need to decide on a rule set by then, don't we?
yeah, we should decide on.
I for one, I am ready to spend like 5 minutes on Slime Eye. I don't know about you, but
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I am
Right,
ready.
Slime Eye.
Okay, question for you guys that have run those categories. Which is worse, Slime Eye or Scorchill?
Slime
Eye.
It's not even close.
And
Yeah,
he's not even the
Slime
final
Eye.
boss of the dungeon.
No. At least you have Wizrobes for Scorchill.
You're supposed
True,
to
true.
have like discounted ice rocks by then, but you don't. In
Yeah,
that
you don't do
category
any
'cause you
riffs. You
skip
don't
so
do any of
much.
like the side riffs. So like, yeah, you don't have any like extra tri power for like more Ice Octos,
Oh yikes, that's
which is the
true.
issue. Like you're better off using Ice Wizrobe for like the first couple phases.
Photon is asking when's the Hundo race.
The Hunter race.
Not scheduled
Great question.
currently.
Hopefully they don't win by default.
Personally, I'm wondering when we're gonna see the Pokemon Catch 'em All race.
Oh yeah, when are we doing a catch 'em all race?
I want to learn that category.
The catch 'em
So
all.
for those of you that don't know, there's been a new category developing that we call Catch 'em All, which is all echoes, basically. And
All
then
enemy
you
echoes, yeah.
all enemy echoes, and then you go fight the Echo Zelda at the entrance to the final dungeon. It's like what Glenn was calling it, like Victory Road or something.
I like the rival battle versus Echo Zelda.
Yeah, that's pretty neat because we don't get to see that fight in a lot of categories,
Mhm.
other than like you
Basically
guys.
just glitchless and 100%.
Hmm. But speaking of glitchless, in case you guys didn't know, just a couple hours ago, TGH set a new world record in glitchless and got the world's first sub 330. So huge congrats to him.
Yeah.
I can't wait to go back and watch that run.
Thanks.
Yeah, I only got the very end of it, so
I also got the very end of it, but it was definitely a null. That was a null of all time.
Alrighty. If is there anything else left to interview about?
I think we might be okay. Huge congrats again to all of our runners, and thanks for joining us. Both everybody on stream and off stream, and everybody in chat who came to support as well. And thanks to Myth, of course, for joining me on commentary. It's been a
And
huge
thank
blast.
you,
I can't wait to do more of these in the future.
Alrighty. Thank you so much, Cloud and Myth, for being our awesome commentators. And shout out to all 6 runners today. And thank you for the 4 that agreed to let me put you on Restream. It was very, very fun to watch, and I look forward to more of these in the future. For now, we are going to raid ZSR 2. Runs 2. Where there is an Ocarina of Time randomizer losers bracket race going right now. So we're gonna go show them lots and lots of love. And I guess that's it. Alrighty, we will see you all later.